Morning, everyone. We'll call our meeting of April the 22nd to order, and we'll start with the roll call. Asphodel Norwood, we have Mayor Wilford.
Present.
And Deputy Mayor Burt. Good morning. In Cavan Monaghan, we have Mayor Graham.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Good morning.
And in Douro Dummer, we have Mayor Watson. Good morning. And online, Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Good morning.
And in Havelock, Belmont, Methuen, we have Mayor Martin.
Good morning.
And Deputy Mayor Webb.
Here.
In North Kawartha, we have Mayor Amiot. Good morning. Deputy Mayor Whalen.
Hi, good morning.
In Otonabee South Monaghan, we have Mayor Taylor.
Here.
And myself, Deputy Mayor Clark. In Selwyn, we have the Deputy Warden and Mayor Senes. Good morning. And Deputy Mayor Black.
Present.
And in Trent Lakes, we have Mayor Lambshead.
I am present.
And Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Present. Thank you. We'll now play our land acknowledgement.
With deep respect, we acknowledge the lands and interconnected waterways that bind us together, the foundation for all life. These lands serve as a keeper of history and stories and are a source of inspiration. In recognizing this, we embrace that all living things possess an important energy and purpose. We extend the utmost gratitude to the original peoples who have been caretakers of these lands and waters of this region from time immemorial, and to this day who continue this commitment. Peterborough County's dedication to reconciliation remains steadfast. In this spirit, we are committed to nurturing meaningful partnerships and connections that contribute to an environment of prosperity and well-being for all generations to come. This acknowledgement is made on the Treaty 20 land and the territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe, and within the traditional lands of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nations. Further, our gratitude is extended to the nations of Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Rama, and Scugog Island.
We'll now have a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Could I have a motion to adopt the addendum agenda? And moved by Councillor Wilford, second by Councillor Armstrong. All in favor? Thank you. Does any council member have a disclosure of pecuniary interest in any agenda item? And Councillor Burt?
Yes, 4A in the closed.
Thank you very much. And now adoption of our minutes from our April 4th. A mover for those, Councillor Webb and Councillor Graham. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll start with delegations and welcome Janet Lovey-Smith, our Chief Administrative Officer and Secretary Treasurer of Otonabee Region and acting for the Crow Authority as well. Welcome, Jeanette.
Thank you, Warden and County Council for having me this morning. I'm going to go through a number of slides, but before I do that, if I can, I just want to acknowledge the staff here at Peterborough County. We've created a few shared services arrangements, both with Otonabee and with Crow Valley Conservation Authority. And the staff here have been just fantastic to work with. And I have a deep appreciation for the relationship that we have. And I want to say thank you for that to the CAO and the staff, particularly with the HR department and the IT department here as well. I also do want to acknowledge that while I'm branded here as Otonabee Conservation, I also as the general manager at Crow Valley Conservation Authority. It's a shared service arrangement that the boards have, and I've been there since December of 2025. And lastly, I will put out an invitation to all of your communities that I'm happy to come to any of your county council, to any of your council meetings, your community meetings, to talk further about the consolidation as we move through this process. I'm sure there's lots of questions that people have. So with that, I'll jump right in. Next slide, please. There is a lot of information that I've contained on the slides. My intention is not necessarily to go through point by point on them. It's really to provide a lot of information that you can read later. I did use a few slides that have come through our meetings with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, MECP, which is the ministry that conservation authorities report to. I thought that it felt better that I used some of their slides so that I'm not interpreting their words or their plans or their thoughts as we move through. These are two links, and I do encourage you to keep pace with these two links. One is the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency. It's a new agency. I will speak a little later on that. And then Bill 97. This bill has many things wrapped up in it in terms of changes. One of them is impacting the conservation authorities, and it is moving through the House as we meet today. Next slide, please. This is actually an MECP slide that they had in one of our presentations. And it does highlight the fact that these changes have been occurring since 2019 for conservation authorities, significant changes since then, many different changes to the legislation, which impacted how our programs and services were defined. But it also really shows you the phases. And that is really what I wanted to show County Council today, and sort of the timeline that they're going through. So right now, we are actually in phase 2 right now. With that, next slide, please. These are the principles that the provincial government is using and communicating in terms of why the changes are occurring to conservation authorities and the consolidation. We do talk a little bit more later on around sort of that reducing the administrative overlap and that duplication, and also the improving of the standards. So there is legislation that is introduced to all 36 conservation authorities. However, they are interpreted differently within that. And so this standardizing is what the provincial government is looking to do. It's really specifically around plan review and permitting services is their focus. With that, next slide, please. This is something, again, that you might see in future communications, but it is something that we as a conservation authority have seen before. Again, is what do these changes mean? So defining what is going to happen or their intentions, but then also communicating what is not going to change. And I do want to highlight the last bullet, which is saying each regional CA will be independent, municipally governed an organization. So while there is a lot of framework that is being introduced and oversight, that they are still independent in terms of things. For autonomy conservation, and I would also say for Crow Valley, we would be very much looking forward to improving our flood management and erosion, which is the second bullet on what the changes mean, and also the standard of modern technology. With that, next slide, please. So this map helps to show what the consolidation was. It was originally 7. It was then a decision notice by the provincial government in December of 2025 to move to 9. And as you can see, each of those are broken up into what the 36 would be. So we are in Eastern Lake Ontario Regional CA, and we are actually the largest. We are 7 consolidated conservation authorities. The next is Huron Lake, and it is 6. Next slide, please. And so this is just, again, another way of showing that picture of what the geography or how far the geography is with the consolidation. Next slide, please. And these are the 7 conservation authorities that are being consolidated into the Eastern Lake Ontario Regional Conservation Authority. This slide here is taken again from the MECP slide deck, and it really talks about the shift in the governance. And so the provincial government is looking to move the governance of these regional CAs to an upper tier, which is Peterborough County, and single tier cities, which it would, in our case, would also be City of Peterborough. It does also articulate what the changes would look like. I'm going to speak a little bit more about timing. The warden was asking me a few questions that I think are important in terms of things. Next slide, please. So then when we become the Regional Conservation Authority, there are appointments to that board. And this slide articulates a little bit around how that will also happen. It does not define that it needs to be who on county council, but it also does say that an appointment would come from county council. So it does leave it a little bit more open. We are anticipating hearing more legislation come this spring. People might say it's spring now, but spring and the fall is when we've been told that we will hear more specific legislation around what this looks like. You can also see that they are looking to continue to do what they call a rep by pop, which is representation by population. So how many seats would be on the regional board is still yet to be determined through this population and this calculation. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the last point that did get highlighted. So for us that I did highlight to both of my boards is that the current boards will continue to sit until the regional boards are appointed and they sit. And so this fall is going to be very busy in terms of the transitions, in terms of everything. So there is the municipal election happening, but the Conservation Authorities Act says that the appointments continue to sit until there is a new appointment. And so in this case, right now, it's February the 1st is what we know that they're looking to have these appointments to the regional board. So each board member will continue to sit until that date. That's a new piece of information. Back in December, we were told that that board would end and then it would start again. This piece is that how they're continuing the governance continuity piece. Next slide, please. This slide is again an MECP slide, and I like this slide because it actually lays it out well in terms of all of the steps and the transitions that are going to have. So I'm going to start at the top. We already have been told around what the province is calling temporary guardrails. Those temporary guardrails are things that the province is saying conservation authorities cannot do while moving through this transition. An example of that is disposition of land. So it allows us in the act to now go through a process, but we are no longer, while moving through this transition, able to do that. There are a number of other guardrails that they have in place for the conservation authorities, but that's one of them. And we also need to move through our budgeting process into 2027, and I'm going to speak a little bit of that. I did have a few questions as well from some of the county council members here today. The second piece is a playbook. The province has come very clear that each of these transition committees will have what they call playbooks and timelines, and it will be project managed, this transition. There will be appointments from MECP occurring to sit on each of these transition committees. There will be reports back through that process to the minister and to the Chief Conservation Executive, which is Hassan Bassett, who was appointed in July of last year. And so these playbooks will help inform what the transition plans will look like. There are certain things that they're looking for each of these 9 plans to be consistent about. However, they're leaving the door open to also tailor some things where there is not necessary. There are things that happen in that regionalization that might be unique that doesn't happen in other places. So it is a, you know, well put together in terms of how it's going to be project managed and how we move through this process. The transition committees are being appointed as we speak, and they are being asked in legislation to be the chair of each of the boards and the general manager / CIOs. So both Crow Valley Conservation Authority and Otonabee Conservation Authority have moved through that process. If the Conservation Authority Board did not make an appointment, the minister would do that for the boards. In both cases, we felt it to be proactive and do that right away because we knew that that was happening. It's really important to understand as well that as this transition is happening, the transition committees are not governance. They're not replacing the board of directors in each of these conservation authorities. Their sole purpose is to develop a transition plan. So they're not replacing the boards. The boards are still in place. Their job is still that governance oversight. Things that need to come to those boards will continue to do so, and decisions will be made. However, the transition committee will be operating concurrently in developing these transition plans. These transition plans, we understand, once they are finalized, they will be provided to each of the municipalities that are in this consolidation. The province does leave the the door opened for them to also make changes to the transition plan should they wish to see fit to do that. If the transition committee cannot develop a transition plan, one will be developed for us. It's actually a quote. In both conservation authorities, we are taking the approach that we need to participate. We need to participate and we need to be a seat at that table, and we need to ensure that the important elements in our communities are reflected in this transition plan. So the board of directors at both boards, but also the staff as well. And I did highlight at the bottom that there is also, again, the municipal representatives will stay sitting until there is a regional appointment. We are anticipating that the first members to the regional board will occur somewhere in January or February. Right now, the provincial government is using February the 1st to have that established. Again, they're also taking the position that if there is not a representative appointed to the regional board, that they will assist the new regional CAs to do that. So that is also a good note to say, I'm happy to come back at another time when we have more information so that you're fully informed. And I'm happy also to come to your municipalities, your communities. Next slide, please. So this is really important also to at least understand. So back in the day, there was a conservation authority ministry or a section within the Ministry of Natural Resources. And for some of you that have been on the Conservation Authority boards for a long time, you might remember this because Deputy Warden actually did some advocating. Back in the day, I actually read some of your speeches back in the time. So it's important to understand because this agency is overseeing the consolidation, but also the framework that these regional boards are going to be operating in. So these have passed in legislation already. They passed in December. So a number of them, again, pointing out the consistent policies and procedures, the fees, the transition, the financial performance of the organization. For me as a CAO, there's very interesting ones here. The next slide, please. And then also number 7 and 8, which also talk about standardizing of systems and digital strategies. So our Chief Executive Officer, Hassan Bassett, is very he was actually the CAO at Conservation Halton for a very long time. He then moved to the city of Burlington as the city manager for about a year and a half before he was asked to come on and take this role on by the province. He led many digital strategies through his time. And so we know we're not surprised as staff to see this. And what they have spoken about is creating a portal for the planning and permitting, in particular the permitting to move through. That portal most likely will have AI attached to it in terms of things. What we don't know is that 9 portals? Is that 1 portal? We don't know the details to this, but we do know that this is being worked on right now, and that they will be implementing this particular objective really clear. When it says objects in legislation for us, it means that's their mandates. These are their 11 mandates as the agency that oversees conservation authorities and the consolidation. Next slide, please. Again, this is a slide from the MECP presentation that we had. So alongside of this, the province is going to be appointing a project executive. And that project executive is going to lead the transition of the consolidation and then move into being the new regional CAO following that transition for a minimum of 2 years. I suppose that's when the board would get established and make those decisions as well. So these are, this is important to understand that we will also have this project executive leading this consolidation of our 7 CAs through this process. The last bullet on this one is around the agency may require payments and fees with respect to this. We have no more details around this, but at this point in time, what we understand is how is this position going to be funded? We know that there is some money set aside to do that, but this legislation or this reg allows for some cost sharing abilities to happen. That's what we understand. And next slide. So this is what the transition committees will be their mandate. And again, we will hear a little bit more with respect to this in the spring. But again, very focused on identifying the gaps, identifying the issues, preparing a transition plan for each of these 9 consolidated conservation authorities. In the legislation, it also does speak to watershed councils. So each of these 9 consolidated CAs are mandated to establish 1 or more watershed councils. And these watershed councils will have more framework around what this will look like, and most likely in the spring or the fall. We know that that's coming, but they are a mechanism that the province has identified to ensure that there are local voices through this process. So in this case, the Watershed Council would report to the regional board on things. And so it is something to think about as we move through this transition of, what is an appropriate number of watershed councils? What would this look like across this consolidation? In terms of things. Next slide, please. And this is a little bit around the appointment to the new regional board. Again, it's not necessarily prescribed yet in legislation, but it is what will come, we understand. And so they are looking to set out some sort of criteria, if you will, for how those members would be appointed. We don't know any more with respect to that at this point. And again, it's based on population. And next slide, please. So I realize that there is a lot of information here, and that was a bit of my intent in the sense of trying to provide you what we know today. And then again, keep the conversation and the door open so as things evolve. every day when we have meetings with the ministry, they do appear in our calendars with very little notice. They often appear within a day notice or 2 days notice. So it's very rapid in terms of how this unfolds. I do think that there is an attempt to at least keep us informed before the legislation is tabled, and that's their method of doing it. But it does mean that we have to react very quickly to participating in those meetings to understand what is going to be happening in terms of things. We also do rely on Conservation Ontario to help interpret the legislation and what some of these things mean. Again, some of this is very similar to what happens right now. The last part around the chairs and the vice chairs, a 2-year term. Right now, at this point, it's the same. And I'm going to get to my last slide if I can. Thank you. So the one thing that I do want to leave County Council with, Madam Warden, is that we will continue to provide excellent customer service. You can count on us to be here. You can count on us to be a partner in your communities, and that we will have program stability. We do now, and we want to continue to do that. We'll continue with our communications and our partnerships. And that's the most important message that I also want to send to County Council today, is that we're here and we're present, we're relevant, and we continue to do our jobs. The next bullets are sort of the next steps that the province has. And that is that the royal assent of the budget bill will happen shortly. It is moving through its process. They will appoint their regional executive, the project executive. The transition committees will start to meet, we believe, in July, in terms of the last day of the appointments, develop the plans, and then the new boards by February. And so it is going to be a busy fall in terms of all of these, but we are prepared. We understand that these transitions and changes, as large scale as they are, we are working to find a way to work with it at this point. That's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And certainly it sounds as if you're being proactive, which is, we are in good hands, so thank you for that. Just before I turn it over for questions, 2 key things. In our strat plan, we talked about collaboration and working for the better of our community. And certainly when you mentioned those partnerships and our staff, I think the other thing was customer centric. So anyway, thank you for mentioning that. That is the direction that we do take. So appreciate that. I'll open it up for questions. Yeah. Oh, nothing is, I see Deputy Warden, and then I see Councillor Graham, Councillor Huntley, Councillor Amiot. What order? Pardon? Councillor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, and thank you, Jeanette, for coming out and presenting yet again. I know I've sat through this one a few times, and do you think I'd have all my questions answered by now? But apparently not. I guess my question today is around the role of the project executive, and you're saying that it's appointed by the agency. Do we have any insight to whether they're hiring from within? Are they elevating, existing CAO, maybe yourself, for instance, or is this an external consulting role where they're kind of bringing in, somebody with a hammer kind of thing? Like any insight to that at all?
Through you, Madam Warden, we don't have a lot of clarity on this in particularly. We do know that Mr. Bessette is looking for what he would say good leaders, good partners within conservation authority worlds. How the rest of that is defined, we don't particularly know yet. So I think it'll probably be a combination of some existing staff and some that are coming externally. We knew in December when the legislation was passed that the 36 CAO / general managers would be out of a job. That was really clear to us. And there was actually Minister McCarthy was in the media talking about this. They don't need 36 of us, they need 9. So how our role fits into what this new world will look like, we still don't know. So I think we will hear a project executive appointment in the coming weeks.
Through you, Chair. I guess technically it's only 35 as you take on 2 of the roles yourself.
This Very good, Councillor Amy. See? Yeah.
Hi, thank you through you to through the one to you. We spoke a little bit just before when I was talking a little bit about, the financial piece, right, and how it's set up. And I know you did state that it's the kind of budgeting is going to be the same for the first year and then be shifting. But I also just wanted to, maybe it's just more of a comment that you could take back, but you talked about the transition that those that are currently appointed continue on until the new appointees. But being an election, all of these councils are wiped out as of November 15th. And then, so I'm just wondering about how that's going to impact the whole budget process as a whole, because what if these folks aren't reelected and how are they able to, work on a budget, right? If they're not, representing, our communities anymore. So my comment.
Through you, Ward, and so this is it is a good question in terms of sort of the timing and the process. Regardless if we were having a consolidation, this component of transitioning from a municipal election into a new board would still play out very similarly. So there are many elected officials here who have been on conservation authority boards for a long time. And so it would still continue to play out until that municipality appointed a new member to that conservation authority board. So in this case, it is just sitting until, again, February the 1st. If you think about the timing, we did talk about this at the 2 board meetings, but if you think about the timing, it's October is the election. November is really the councils coming together for the first time. There's obviously a lot of orientation and things that need to happen along with other appointments. Then it's Christmas, December, and then it's January, and then it's February. So there's not a lot of window of time here, really, at the end of the day, when you will also have very busy calendars back in your communities.
Thank you.
With respect to the budget, the board did actually talk a little bit about this. So I'm actually changing up our timing. And I did speak with Chair Metcalf a little bit around this, but I do think that it is prudent, given that at some point in time, you as well will have what you would. I was formerly in the municipal sector for a very long time. You would have a lame duck council in terms of your abilities to approve things. So we really want to actually have a budget process that doesn't put you in an awkward place approving the budget. We have been asked by the ministry to have a budget like we would now moving into 2027. So we are thinking about a very modest budget moving into 2027. And that is so that the regional board would have at least a budget in place to work for with that year. The transition would then move through that process in 2027 of how the budgets would be established. So it will be modest. It will be more stabilizing things. There won't be anything new with respect to that budget, and for both conservation authorities. And we also want to make sure that we also retain the staff through this process as well. So that is most likely key. So you'll see me, and I'm happy to come and speak to this, because why are we approving a budget at such a different time of the year than we have in the past? That is really the primary reason, is to make sure that we're staying out of those windows and that we're doing our due diligence and what we need to do to keep the organization stable.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Warden Sanis, please. Thank you to you, Madam Warden. Who's going to pay for all this? I know that the way it is right now, the different municipalities that are helping to fund Orca are reflected with a weighted vote. Those that put more money in have more of a vote at the board table. Do you have any sense as to how the province is going to manage this once we bring all these other players in? Some of them bigger, some of them smaller?
Through you, Madam Ward. So we understand that there's going to be more legislation to define this in the spring in terms of how this is going to play out. We do know that they are still going to continue to use the weighted vote approach. We do know that they are looking at what we would call the CVA, which is basically how the assessment is broken into who pays and how much they pay, and that they will be changing that process. We've been told those two things, and pending legislation, I would say that they're going to follow through on that. So that's a good opportunity again to come back once we know more. But we don't have any other insights at this point in terms of it. The play to pay concept is very much something that has been communicated very clearly many times over to the MECP and to Mr. Bissett around things. So how they're going to balance it, not quite sure.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear on, you said weighted assessment then?
No, so at the boards, the Conservation Authority boards, when they approve a budget, which is typically the only time that it's used, is that it's a weighted vote. And that has been the autonomy conservation way of doing it. It not necessarily is the way at Crow Valley. It's generally by yeah. So I think they're going to continue to do a weighted vote through that process of budget approvals. How that might play out in terms of other decisions, I'm not quite sure. We don't have any direction yet.
So I understand the weighted vote having chaired the conservation, but is it assessment or population? I just wanted to be.
It most likely is population.
Okay.
Most likely population. The assessment comment was relative to the levy. Right now we'd use the assessment, and it's a formula that is given to us from MECP, and we use that calculations in terms of the levy. Okay. We understand they're going to make changes to that formula.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lamset.
And that's basically my question as well as population. You know, the county of Peterborough has a fairly large population, but there's certain areas of Peterborough that have a very small population, but they're the origination of some of the watersheds. So would a municipality like North Kawartha or Trent Lakes have a voice on that panel? Because we are the start of some of the watersheds and we have a very small population, huge geographic area. So would we have a voice at that table?
Most likely not. The only way that you would have a voice at the table is through this process. Most likely you would not. I being at both watersheds, I completely understand that you are at the top of the watershed and we still have snowpack up there that still has to come through yet. But your representation would be through this process.
Thank you. Councillor Black.
Take you through the word, and thanks for the presentation, Janet. Having heard it a second time even brings more depth to the understanding of a pretty complicated process. But the question was already asked, who's paying for this? And I just quickly done the math on going from 36 to 9 CAOs, CEOs, whatever, EDs, whatever they're going to be called, and that's between $3.5 and $4 million in savings. But that's not going to cover the cost of 9 new authorities and senior bureaucrats. Has there been any discussion at the province as to how that is going to be paid for?
I appreciate the question. Deputy Mayor, I like to use the term public servant. I'm a public servant. But with respect to that, I don't know. They have not yet. I think this is a question that the regional board will need to be struggling with, is the organizational structure of just similar to the health unit, right? In terms of things. So how the organization is going to be structured is one of the key things that this new regional board would need to use or need to decide on. They will need to decide on a new administrative bylaw, like how are those votes going to be happening? Right now, we're going to have 7 put into one. So there are a priority of things that, in my experience, that they will need to prioritize. Those would be 2 of the top. How we do know that there's going to be some funds available to help do the transition, and that money is available over a 2-year period. So there will be most likely some staff that will continue, some staff that might not, and then how that would look in the new structure. One of the guardrails that the province has also told us when I spoke earlier is that we are not allowed to make any organizational changes. We can't make organizational changes through this transition process. It is going to be a decision of the new regional board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark.
So on a lighter note through you, this is something that, we've been watching at HBM for quite a while and seeing how this moves, because right now we pay 39% of the levy at Crow Valley, and we're looking forward to the county taking that over and so anyways, so be prepared.
Yes, HBM does have the largest chunk there.
Okay, thank you. I have one question, Jeanette, Conservation Ontario. How do you see this affecting that organization?
Warden, that's a really good question. It has actually been asked back through these meetings that we've had with MECP. If you think back, so there is no answer to this.
Okay.
There really isn't. Each of the conservation authorities pay a levy. So Conservation Ontario does not have the ability to levy communities, right? They levy each of the 36, and that is how they receive their funding. And going back to the objects, one of the things is around that financial structure that the agency will have. So I'm not sure how that will unfold in terms of their funding and their ability, these 9 regional CAs, to fund Conservation Ontario anymore. They are an association, and they have provided a very valuable service in terms of advocacy, in terms of some lobbying, but also in terms of interpretation of the legislation. As you can imagine, Bill 97 is broken. All of the components that I highlighted today are broken and spread out through that entire Omnibill. It is really difficult to pull out the threads in terms of things. Now, we did have a lot of communication with Conservation Ontario and the senior staff around what that would look like. So that was very helpful in the early days. We don't know. They did ask that question around what the future looks like. I think that staff there are still grappling with all of these things and trying to understand what their future looks like as well.
Thank you for your presentation. A mover and a seconder for that, Deputy Warden Senes and Councillor Lanshead. All in favor? Thank you. All right, moving to consent items. There has been one request, and that is to pull correspondence item 5. Is there anything else that anyone would like pulled? Okay, I'm going to turn it to Councillor Amiot to speak at item 5 regarding the Municipal Engineering Association regarding the harmonization of municipal road construction standards.
Okay, thank you. And through you, yeah, as I was reading through our agenda package and I came across this and I reached out to staff both at the township level and here at the county, just what their thoughts were on this letter, because as I said in my email, I sensed that there was like a similar theme and concerns as what was highlighted in Keziah's upcoming planning report, but the province looking to make changes and without really considering the challenges about what they are, looking to do. And I just highlight a couple of things like their comments, the recent unilateral actions by the ministry regarding both the process and substance of the proposed harmonization standards, lack of meaningful engagement. It's just, the absence of clear shared understanding as to what the issues are. And I just thought, that's why I reached out to staff and said like, hey, should we support this? I know it's not a motion from another municipality. And staff, were supportive of that. So I just wanted to put forward a motion for consideration that the Municipal Engineers Association's requested actions in the March 31st, 2026 memo from the association to the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario related to OPSS modernization and harmonization concerns be supported.
Okay, so you'd like to make that
Yes,
motion?
please.
Okay, and seconder, Matthew, Councillor Graham. So any questions around this? All right, all in favor? Thank you. Now, I guess a motion to receive the remaining correspondence, and I'll look to Councillor Watson and Councillor Black, all in favor? Thank you. And a motion to receive remaining consent items, Councillor Burt and Councillor Whalen. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll move to 9A and Keziah, if you'll come to the podium, and our General Manager of Planning around the official plan amendment.
Thank you, Warden. Before you have a report for an official plan amendment. It is our file number 15 OP 20003. The property in question is known municipally as 804 Ironwoods Drive. That's in Warsaw in the township of Duro-Dummer. The lands are currently designated Hamlet Site-Specific Special Policy Area, which permits a golf course and accessory uses. The lands are also designated environmental constraint and provincially significant wetland, which reflect the floodplain and provincially significant wetland on the property. The golf course no longer exists, so the landowners are wanting to remove the site-specific special policy area and simply designate the property Hamlet. The lands within the floodplain will remain designated environmental constraint, and the lands within the wetland will remain designated provincially significant wetland. There were a number of studies completed in support of the application, including a planning justification report, an archaeological assessment, an environmental site assessment, and an environmental impact study. And those studies were reviewed either by a public agency or by the county's peer review consultant as applicable. In accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, full agency circulation and public notice was provided, and a public meeting was hosted by Duro-Dummer Township Council. We have received a number of agency comments that as a result of the circulation, and we had concerns received from members of the public with regard to the impact on the wetland and development in the floodplain. And we have considered those issues to be addressed. The Conservation Authority has reviewed the application, has indicated that the development is located outside of the hazard area. And as I mentioned, the floodplain and wetland will remain designated and zoned to preclude development. The lands are also regulated by the Conservation Authority, so permits will be required before any construction can happen on the site. And they have requested an erosion and sediment control plan as part of that permitting process. So the report before you reviews the provincial, county, and township policy, and we have found that the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement and it conforms to the official plan. The township has provided a resolution in support of the application. And so we have recommended that the OPA be approved and adopted by bylaw and that the required notice be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act.
Thank you. Keziah, any questions at all? And if not, then a mover, and I'm looking Councillor Nelson and Councillor Martin, all in favor? Thank you. Keziah, remain at the podium. You're on again. This looks like a lot of work, this one.
Yeah, so the report before you, on April 1st, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing circulated a letter to all municipalities introducing the Building Homes and Improving Transportation Infrastructure Act, or Bill 98. So that is currently available on the Environmental Registry of Ontario, the ERO, for public review and comment. So that bill proposes to make changes to a number of acts, including the Planning Act, the Building Code Act, and the Municipal Act. In addition to the ERO posting that our report has focused on, there are 9 other proposals associated with Bill 98, and those are listed for you in our report. But our comments are focused on ERO posting 026-0300, the proposed Planning Act, City of Toronto Act, Building Code Act, and Municipal Act changes, and also ERO posting 026-0315, which is consultation on upper tier official plans, secondary plans, and site and area specific policies. Now, I know my report says that the commenting period for those postings will close on April 29th, but just last Friday, they did extend the commenting period for an additional 15 days. So the commenting period is now open until May 14th. So if Bill 98 is passed, the county will be required to change the structure and format of our official plan by January 1st, 2029. So just by way of a little bit of background, this is not the first time the province has consulted on the format and structure of official plans. Last fall, there was also an ERO posting. At that time, the discussion was more general in nature. They were requesting our perspectives on standardizing and simplifying official plans. The current ERO posting is much more specific. Currently, the Planning Act allows municipalities to tailor their official plans based on local circumstances, historical decisions, geographical challenges, and local public input. With the changes proposed through Bill 98, lower tier and single tier official plans will need to prepare their official plan in a prescribed, provincially designed format. And since the county OP includes policies for lower tier townships, our official plan would be required to be updated. And as you can see on our report, the proposed change outlined exactly what sections, schedules, land use designations, and permitted uses must be included. So it's a very prescriptive process as to what needs to be included. We have reviewed those the prescribed format against our adopted new official plan. And for the most part, our new OP contains all of the key components. It would just need to be reformatted to meet the provincial structure. Where we see the biggest concern is with designations and mapping. So the land use designations in the new OP are not the same as the ones that are prescribed by the province. So it would require a complete overhaul of all of our mapping schedules and a parcel by parcel review of land use mapping in all of our local component townships to make sure that all of our properties are placed in an appropriate land use designation. There are also unique policy provisions in our OP that were created based on the needs and local circumstances of the community, and it's not clear what will happen to those policies under the provincial format. We are concerned that this will result in further delays. So as you know, our OP was adopted in 2022. And since that time, there have been 5 major provincial legislative changes that have caused further delays to the approval of our official plan. And the constant review of those changes is taking away staff time to process applications and serve our communities. We're also concerned that there may be delays by the provincial government in approving official plans if every single tier and lower tier official or municipality in the province has to meet the same implementation deadline. So based on our experience with the growth plan, many of you probably remember, we met the growth plan conformity deadline, and then the province proceeded to pause their own timeline for making decisions. We would note that as part of the development of our official plan, part of our consideration was whether we update our current OP or whether we go with a whole new document. And a very large reason that we went with the new official plan is to take advantage of the fact that we would not be required to do an update for another 10 years. So if this legislation is passed, an update to our new OP would be required almost immediately. So the province has indicated in their ERO posting that any costs incurred by municipalities in updating their OP are considered part of normal business and is assumed to be included in the municipal budget. And we would respectfully disagree. We did not anticipate updating our OP for another 10 years, and instead we're going to have to be updating it in less than 3. So for the county, the costs associated with implementing these changes are not considered part of normal business, and it's not included in our budget. So we know that the provincial government wants to cut red tape and they want to see development approved faster. But they are presenting changes they're presenting changes more quickly than we can even implement them. So based on our experience and the number of pre-consultations we're having and the number of development applications we're seeing, we don't believe that the official plan is what's causing any delays. And so we have recommended that our report be received and submitted on the ERO as our formal comment on the bill, and that the province be urged to provide funding to municipalities to help offset the costs of updating their OPs, and also that a copy of the report be forwarded to all of our local municipalities and MPPs.
Thank you, Keziah. So much for eliminating red tape. I open it up for questions. Councillor Whalen.
Thanks, Keziah. Awful lot of verbiage, but to boil it down, we're not gonna get our official plan approved right away. Is that what I agreed? And the big question is, we've got things that we've been holding off on for this official plan to go through. Can we do official plan amendments still?
Through you, Warden. So our official plan is, we don't anticipate that the province is going to make us have this standardized structure before it's released or before it's approved. We do anticipate that our OP will get a decision, and then we will have to undertake another OPA to meet this standardized format. I recognize that there are municipalities out there that are definitely wanting to get their zoning bylaw updated. I don't know how that timing is going to play out with, if we get our approval this year for our new OP and then we need to update it immediately before January 1st, 2029. That's going to be a tricky timeline to manage.
But if they just take, excuse me, take one specific thing and say that we've been told to hold off because the official plan was coming, hold off. We take that one specific thing and say, hey, we want to put through a zone amendment on this now. Can we do that?
Through your Warden, yes, you can.
You can?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Huntley.
And through you, Chair, I understand this is a lot of work, and you put together a very comprehensive report on this one. The only thing I feel is missing, though, is actually quantifying it. Like how much time and how much money is this going to cost us, right? Like it's one thing you put up your hand and say it's going to cost us, but what is it going to cost us, right? And I think that number is more impactful than just leaving it as help fund us.
Yep. Through you, Warden. I agree. I was unable to put a figure to it because there are so many factors in creating and developing a new official plan. So you're talking staff time, not only at the county level, but we would anticipate the need to involve township staff to go on, undertake that parcel by parcel review to make sure that all of the mapping is what you want to see. We're also talking our GIS staff. And there are so many, because it's a public process, you almost don't know how many hours of staff time are needed, just because when you involve the public, you could get tons of feedback or you could get zero. So that's why we struggled to quantify it and put a number to it.
Follow, through you, Chair. I would still say even an order of magnitude is more beneficial than nothing. So I don't expect a budget precision number, but at least is it $10,000 or is it $1 million? There's no way of telling in between.
So just to interject on that, Keziah, could we say this will be a 6-figure cost to the municipality, or just put it instead of just to get and when I hear you talking about municipal staff, county staff, GIS, to me, I'm thinking 6 figures, not
But even, sorry, Chair, to interrupt, but even listing that amount of effort, like where this effort's coming from is valuable information as well.
Through you, Warden, we could always, as part of our submission, we could maybe detail that a little bit more. I don't know that we have time. We may have time to come back to council if that's the direction you'd like to go.
Yes, Sheridan, please weigh in.
Through you, I don't know that we would need to bring it back to council. We can provide it to council for information, but that we would just detail to Councillor Hunley's point what we anticipate the impacts could be.
So just when we get to that point, amend it with costs as staff has projected. Okay. All right. Councillor Graham, then Councillor Armstrong.
Through you, Warden, just following up on a few of those same sort of thread lines. I mean, I would assume that in some of the advocacy, I think, you know, we're all aware of what the content of official plans are. What does it matter what the cadence of the document has? I mean, anyone who's developing anything that requires to consult an official plan can look to the policies that prescribe. So to redo and invest however many thousands and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to reorganize a document seems really, you know, completely spendthrift and a waste of money. So if we're advocating in that challenge, like why not? If the content's here, what does it matter how? Like it's not creating that much efficiencies to know that this section follows this section. It's very easy to follow.
Yeah.
So that seems a bit frivolous at best. I guess, and kind of building again on some of the inefficiencies. I mean, I think maybe our municipality having a separate OP is more frustrated than most. But you know, if the province can't fulfill its obligations to process its own materials, then I really have an issue with the province not making municipalities the barrier. You know, we're at the mercy of all of their changes, all of their legislation disruptions that we you know have to then implement. And you know, here we are 4 years, maybe 5, approaching 5, without them able to come back to us with a finalized document to actually expedite and fulfill what this council and the previous council has worked on to get us through. Like talk about inefficiencies, talk about ineffectiveness. I mean, the province is just becoming the most inefficient, other than blaming other people at fulfilling their obligations to municipalities and taxpayers. So like I take a lot of issue with this. I think a lot of the report summarizes a few of those things. I think some quantification is helpful. You know, I also think about, you know, what's coming in the proposed changes to the development charges and official plans being studies that were theoretically eligible in previous iterations of the changes in that document. Well, if there are going to be enforced reductions in that document, well, then not only would there be a portion that would be on the tax base, but you're adding additional with any reductions in DC funding to offset that as well. And this document is probably the most growth impactful document that we're doing. So if ever there was a document to be DC funded rather than existing taxpayers funded, you would think an official plan would be it. But you know, I think a lot of council, and I think they would be comfortable with me saying it, and a lot of us don't like to, is that it's getting a bit tired. I'm tired of municipalities being communicated to as the problem when we're at the mercy of governments that can't make decisions based on data and then implement them for more than 6 to 8 months, it seems. Like at some point it's got to stop. And, you know, I think that you've encompassed a lot of the comments that are frustrating. I would have probably used a bit stronger language, but I can appreciate the forum that you're in and the forum that we're in. And I wish you luck in hoping that, you know, the advocacy that we're doing is heard, because it is getting very tiresome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Graham. Yes, July 22 certainly is one burned in my memory. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, and through you, Warden. So standing at a slightly different soapbox and not popular. 3 comments. First of all, thanks very much, Keziah, for the thorough analysis and frankly, very succinct summary of what's in this. It's pretty complex stuff. So thanks for breaking it down for us. Second comment, I actually think there is value if we are customer centric, if we are customer focused, in having some standardized language, land designations, etc., across all the official plans. You know, right now, having differences in official plans drives people to have to go to consultants and lawyers, etc., to understand the differences and figure them out, etc. So there are costs on that side of the equation. So I think there is value in trying to get some consistency across official plans. In theory, in practice as well. However, we've been whiplashed to death by this province in terms of changing things on us and knee-jerk reactions that we have to make. So I think the idea is a good one. Trying to hold everybody to a January 1, 2029 deadline is absolutely ridiculous. I think if they were to consider something of this with this direction, but allow municipalities to make the changes within their own cycles that are already established. So if they said, okay, County of Peterborough, your renewal revision is due in 10 years. So at that 10-year mark, here are the things we'd like to see you phase in. So I think the implementation could be a whole lot better. So I don't disagree with anything that's in response back to the province, but I just wanted to sort of raise a little hand and say, if we're thinking about this from the customer perspective, there is some value. We're having consistency across official plans throughout the province. So thank you.
Right. Any further discussion? Councillor Taylor, just use your mic. Please.
Thank you, Warden Clark. I was simply going to say, if there's no further discussion, I'm quite happy to move to receive the report and submit it as a formal response to DRO.
Inclusive of staff putting in.
With the additional information Councillor Huntley has requested, yes.
Okay, moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Amiot. All in favor? Thank you. All right, and we'll move on to our manager of sustainability, and we're going to speak to the county sustainability and climate change action plan.
Okay, good morning, County Council. Yeah, this is a bit of a change of pace for what you're used to seeing from me today, less garbage talk. So I'm excited to present the draft sustainability and climate change action plan. So this plan was developed in-house by county staff. So before I go through the presentation, just want to quickly thank my staff, Harriet Walker, and our climate intern, Dexter Adkin, who's with me today, for their work in supporting putting this together. Next slide, please. I have a definition slide here. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read through them, but I am going to be talking about these terms. So I just wanted you to have these handy if you needed to refer back to them. To give a bit of a background on how we got here today, the plan that you have for consideration is an update to the Sustainable Peterborough Sustainability Action Plan from 2012 and the Sustainable Peterborough 2016 Climate Change Action Plan. As you know, Sustainable Peterborough dissolved at the end of 2024. And so at that time, County Council made the decision to bring sustainability in work in-house and to update these plans. So the Waste Management Division was renamed Waste Management and Sustainability. And throughout 2025, our staff have worked to update these plans, and we've combined them into one document. Next slide, please. So climate change is a global issue, but for our purposes, I'm just going to focus on a few of the local impacts that we've been seeing. So if we look at the province, Ontario put out an impact assessment report in 2023, and they've identified the impacts that we're seeing in Ontario that are happening now and projected to worsen over time as heat waves, flooding, and damage from more frequently occurring extreme weather events. And we have some high-risk sectors that they've identified in Peterborough County that are important to our economy, things like food and agriculture, our natural environment, which is very important to our tourism economy. As well, county residents, we found when we surveyed, were also seeing some of these changes. Next slide, please. So zooming into Peterborough County, we have a number of different phenomenon that have happened over the last 10 years that could be linked to climate change. So things like more extreme weather events that we've certainly experienced, extreme fire risks, increased wildfire smoke, tick range expansion. So the intent with this plan is to do what we can to take responsibility for our own contributions towards some of these impacts, but also prepare and adapt to some of these impacts we're facing and are expected to increase. Slide, please. So up until now, we haven't really had dedicated staff who've been working on these initiatives to move forward progress on the previous plans, but we have been able to make some progress. So corporately, we've done a number of things that have helped reduce our emissions. So things like building retrofits over time when replacements were necessary, right-sizing new vehicles that needed to be purchased, as well as waste diversion programs throughout the county, townships, and the city of Peterborough that have reduced landfill emissions. Community-wide, so when I say community, I'm talking about the county as a whole. So we have partnerships with Green Up on a number of different programs. We have a climate change action committee that has staff members from the county of Peterborough, each township, Green Up, and For Our Grandchildren. And our planning division has also implemented some sustainable related items, currently working on our watershed plan. I'll skip the official plan based on today's discussion. Next slide, please. So we set the following goals at the beginning of this process, and if this plan is approved and move forward, we'll continue on with these goals in our work. So we wanted to build partnerships internally and externally. We'll get a lot more done if we work with partners. That includes the township as well as local organizations to move some of these initiatives forward. We wanted to set initiatives that were actionable, that we could achieve, but also that are fiscally responsible. Those two things kind of go together, and even have potential for long-term cost savings. We wanted everyone to be able to understand the plan and the work that we're doing. And we wanted to identify where we could work together with townships and First Nations on their own goals when it comes to climate change and sustainability. The target that we've set in the plan specifically for our corporate greenhouse gas emissions is in line with the federal targets that they've put in place. And this is under federal legislation as well as the Paris Agreement, which is an international agreement that many countries have signed on to. So the targets are 40% reduction of emissions by 2030, 50% reduction by 2035, and net zero by 2050. We've set these for our corporate emissions because we have more control over corporate emissions than emissions for the entire county. And it will be a challenge to meet these targets, but these targets were set with input from top scientists around the world that are working on this, and they were specifically chosen to help mitigate the severe consequences of climate change, protect human health and well-being of our residents, and fostering a sustainable economy. And as I mentioned, at the same time, we can develop an adaptation plan to deal with some of the impacts that are happening and will happen in the future. So we wanted to get as much input as possible on this plan. So we went through some engagement processes in 2025. We heard from all 8 township staff, and we also heard from Curve Lake First Nation and Hiawatha First Nation staff. We spoke with 13 community stakeholders. We had a resident survey out, and we heard back from 147 residents. And we also met internally with 9 different divisions in the county to make sure we were setting goals that were doable, because this work spans all sorts of different divisions in the county, not just ours. And there's much more detailed summaries of the engagement in the plan. So this is a snapshot of what our corporate greenhouse gas emissions look like. We've chosen 2018 as our baseline year because that was the most available data set that we had to work with, the furthest back. So then we've calculated our emissions for 2024 and 2025, and we can see that we have been reducing our corporate emissions since 2018, so that's great. We've made some progress towards that 40% target in 2030, which is that top blue horizontal line there. Slide. And this just zooms in on our corporate greenhouse gas emissions to see kind of where they're coming from, what the sources are. So in the pie chart, the gray is our solid waste emissions from the landfill. So they make up the largest chunk, and then our fleet, and then our buildings. And in the table, you can see where we've made progress to date. So buildings through a number of retrofits that have occurred, as well as solid waste reductions due to things like the clear bag programs that townships have implemented, organics diversion through the county as well as the city. We count for a certain percentage of the landfill emissions, so we are benefiting from the city's organics diversion and lowering that number. And then with equipment and fleet, you can see variances from 2024 to 2025. I think this is likely due to severity of winter season. 2024 was not as bad. So I think 2026 will look similar to 2025 when we calculate that. Next slide. Our community emissions for the county as a whole were last calculated in 2011 by Sustainable Peterborough, and our staff are working on updating these right now. So the next time you see a report on this, these will be updated. But at the time, residential homes, so heating typically would be a big chunk there. Transportation, as well as agriculture and other land uses, so livestock making up a good portion of that. Next slide, please. The initiatives that we've put into the plan can be broken down into 4 categories. So sustainability, climate change mitigation corporately, mitigation community-wide, and climate change adaptation. And then there's subcategories within each. There are specific initiatives throughout the plan under each of these subcategories. I'd be here all day if I explained them all. But these initiatives were chosen due to a number of different factors. The mitigation emissions were chosen because they're the biggest areas where our emissions are, so we can make the biggest progress there. These initiatives were also chosen based on our engagement process, what we heard. They were chosen because they were potentially fiscally responsible. There's funding available, or there has been funding in the past for some of these. Some of them can help contribute to cost savings for residents, as well as they support our local economy and the health and well-being of our residents as well. Slide. So the initiatives that I just touched on are spread out into a 5-year action plan, and that action plan will support improved sustainability and resilience across the county, working towards that 40% emission reduction target by 2030, doing our part to reduce community greenhouse gas emissions, and a completed climate adaptation plan. And we plan on following the best practices here on the slide that we've seen other municipalities successfully utilize in getting their action plans moving forward. So leveraging funding wherever possible, building community partnerships, making sure we have staff capacity to focus on these, and strategic prioritization. And what that could look like is potentially in the next strategic plan update, considering sustainability and climate change as part of that. Slide. We will report to council annually on progress. And in 2030, again, if this plan is approved and goes forward, we would put together the next 5-year action plan for council. And that concludes my presentation.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to our other Carrie.
Just wanted to let council know that I did receive a comment this morning publicly from the posting of the agenda, and it was from Lakelands Public Health. Lakelands Public Health is supportive of the Peterborough County Sustainability and Climate Change Action Plan and recognizes the critical importance of climate action for protecting and promoting community health. Climate change poses significant risks to physical and mental health through increased extreme weather events, air quality impacts, heat-related illness, food safety and security, and the spread of infectious diseases. Proactive climate action, including adaptation measures, is essential to building resilient, healthy communities. Lakeland Public Health recognizes the value of coordinated community-based approaches to climate adaptation and looks forward to working closely with Peterborough County and local partners to advance adaptation strategies that reduce health risks and support a sustainable, resilient future for all residents.
Thank you for reading that. So any questions? Yes, Councillor Graham.
Through you, Warden. Thanks for the report, Carrie, and a lot of good content in there. One of the things that I was looking for or thought maybe could be showcased a little bit more is we've had historical conversations about the county forest. And it's reflected in there in one part just with regards to the lands as something, but I don't think it's communicated as a way of such a significant contribution to offset some of the emissions, because it's a unique asset, just like Lang is from a municipal standpoint. And I don't think we've recognized it historically as a significant contributor to, from an air quality and carbon capture, et cetera, all of the components that the county forest and from an environmental benefit provides. And I think it's important that, if we're going to continue to fund that entity and maintain it with good stewardship as we are and as we intend to, I think we should also take the credit and recognize it for the impact that it's having to offset any of the emissions components that we do have. And I just think I was looking for it in there a little bit more, because I had calculated at one point what the offset was based on some metric I was able to find. That was years ago when it came up, but I do think it's helpful to understand that we should get credit for making the investment and maintaining the forests with the stewardship that we do, and kind of maybe be a bit more vocal about that nuance as people understand our macro emission output. We should get credit for the offset that does provide to our contribution.
Yes, thank you. That's unique.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that through you, Warden. So we have, I know it's not explicitly mentioned in the plan, but we have started going through the process to look at potentially quantifying those carbon offsets as a potential revenue source. So we've met with the Ontario Woodlot Association, and then we've also met with a company that is like a carbon credit broker called Anu to determine if they would be interested in partnering with us. Our forest isn't large enough for them to be interested in, but there are potentially some smaller companies that we could look to partner with they would actually come into the forest and do, I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but they would go and measure different plots and things like that to specifically calculate our carbon offsets that we could sell into the market. Or if we get to the point where we've reduced enough that we're trying to get to that net zero, it could be counted towards our emissions as offsetting some of those. So I'm really interested to see how they end up being quantified.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley, then Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Warden. Kind of on the same line as Councillor Graham is you're taking credit for stuff that we already do. It's great to have the plan that's out there, and we can hold a plan. But when you talk to residents, the first thing is, so what have you done, right? And it's always good to have that report card of changing the street lights, or you're reducing your fleet, or you're updating things, like actually having tangible, this is what we've done to achieve it, is always resonates with people, right? They understand, that everybody's trying to get to net zero, and I'm not the biggest fan of the credit system, but I'd rather see us actually proactively do things to get there, but taking credit for it. And to Councillor Graham's point again, like we do, and we have done a lot of stuff, but nobody knows what it is, right? So how did you get there? And like, toot our own home for a change, right? Rather than take the flak on it. Anyway, this is my comment. So actually, to finish that comment is, when the report comes back, when you do updates, I'd love to see a report card come with it, of the accomplishments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon.
Thank you, and through you. One of the good things that Sustainable Peterborough did do was an annual report card on what had taken place in that year over the region, as well as they did sustainability awards, which were really well received and really honored by the companies that received them. So I think it's definitely something that we should be reviewing and taking in-house as a way that we can celebrate what not just the county's doing, but what businesses in our region are doing as well, and residents. So thank you. We will take that and incorporate that.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Warden Clark. Thank you, Carrie, for the report and for bringing this new plan forward for consideration. I'm sure as you know, and staff knows, council periodically gets correspondence from I guess it's a small organization that closely watch what all municipalities in the county of Peterborough are doing with this regard, and very strenuously object to doing anything that may have a cost associated with it. They could well be listening right now, and I hope they are, because I want them to know that I disagree with that position. I completely disagree with it. I think it's a mistake. I think it plays into their hand when we try to tag specific weather events always to climate change. There's always was and always going to be weather events. It's the general trends that we need to look at.
Mhm.
And a good example would be this past winter. It was a good old-fashioned winter. However, the trend over the last, one of the advantages of living in this long is you get to see a real trend, and the winters are not what they were 50 years ago. They're simply not. This one was a little bit of an anomaly. So we just need to be cautious about that, because that plays into their hand when you start blaming a thunderstorm on climate change, because that's not actually the fact. It's trends, the trends we need to look at. The one question I wanted to ask you about the report, and it may not be a concern depending upon your answer, but you said that to ensure success of this next 5-year plan, it depends upon a number of conditions, and one was ensuring staff capacity. Is there any reason to suggest that the current staffing levels isn't sufficient to make sure that this plan is addressed?
Through the warden, so we're not suggesting any additional staff through this report. There have been a number of changes in the waste management division over the last few years that we're able to reallocate resources to work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions. There is a motion to entertain. Anyone? Yes, Councillor Huntley and Deputy Warden Senes, all in favor? Thank you. Notice of motion. Does anyone have a notice of motion to bring forward? And I see none. I'm going to move to announcements. I would like to start by saying that we're saddened to announce the passing of Bob Bolton after a courageous battle with ALS. Bob was a long-time serving and well-loved county public works employee here with the county. He attended a lot of the retirement activities post. He is the father-in-law of Councillor Nelson, and we'd like to pass on certainly our condolences to you, Harold and Sherry and the family, and all the friends of Bob on behalf of county and county staff.
Thank you very much, Warden. Thanks for them kind words, and I will be sure to pass it on to the family. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Amiot, you have
I do, yes. On not this weekend, but the following weekend, May 2nd and May 3rd, I would invite everyone to come up to Apsley for the first annual Apsley Lions Home and Cottage Show. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Sunday. It's going to have lots of vendors showcasing different items and services for the home and cottage. You can meet local contractors to help with all your needs. We've got some great advertising and promotional partnerships. A lot of radio stations are going to be doing sort of live broadcast from there. So I think it's going to be epic. I just fingers crossed for good weather, but come on up and get yourselves a boat.
excellent. Councillor Graham.
Through you, Warden, I just wanted to pass on our condolences to the family of MPP Scott with the passing of her brother last week. I know it's a significant loss to the family, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Scott family and while they're going through this and the loss to their family. So
Thank you. Thank you. No, I was not aware of that. So certainly to MPP Scott, absolutely condolences. Councillor Wilfred.
No. Through you, Warden. I'm sitting here drinking this lovely coffee from McDonald's, and it's McDonald's Happy Day on May 6th in Asphodel Norwood Township. They're raising funds. Half the funds that they raise will go to Ronald McDonald House. They're going to put a quarter of the funds to our public library and a quarter of the funds to the Hucklebug Nursery School in Asphodel Norwood.
just.
But it is always a happy day in Asphodel.
It always is. You're 100% correct.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Aaron Clark. A lot of announcements this morning. I'm pleased to announce that on Sunday, there's going to be a celebratory event for the 75th anniversary of the Keene Lions Club. It's quite a significant accomplishment. It's certainly it's benefited our municipality greatly for 75 years. And interestingly enough, some of the children of the original founding members are current Lions Club members now.
And actually, a granddaughter as well. Her father and certainly grandfather were as well. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Warden. Just wanted to announce that our CAO and treasurer, Donna Taggart, will be retiring this year. She served in that dual role since 2019 and served admirably. But she will continue to work for us and work with the new CEO for a period of time towards the end of the year. And we are also very pleased to announce that we have found and made an offer to Michelle Wilson, who is currently the CEAO at Brock, who will be joining us next Monday, is her first day. She's worked at all levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal. She's a chartered professional accountant and has a Master of Arts degree in economics from the University of Waterloo. She worked for a time at Trent Universities and also for the York Region Community Housing Organization. So we're really looking forward to her. We think both professionally and personality-wise, she will be a really good fit with the team and continue on in the excellent service that Donna has provided for us.
Excellent. Thank you. I have a few announcements myself. Maybe we could put the slide up first for United Way. So the United Way of Peterborough and District had a very successful campaign, 1.5 million. And Peterborough County won the Making It Rain Award. So thank you to all the staff and County Council. It was 5 times our donation from last year. You'll see Sheridan there, and she was the campaign cabinet of 2026. Meeting started at 7:30 in the morning at Trent, so certainly thank you for that. Don't know if all of us would have that kind of stamina, but anyway, thank you for everything that County Council and staff did, and thank you, Sheridan, for going the extra mile. So wonderful. So also this is National Tourism Week, and the collab in the Kawarthas was very, very successful out at Elmer's Resort, one of the jewels here in Peterborough County. Rhonda, Tracy, and Sarah did an amazing job. I had many of the resorts, the businesses come forward and say that they have never had this kind of collaboration and support before, and just the team, a round of applause to our team. So also, there is a lot of announcements today, Councillor Taylor. Today is Earth Day as well. So just a reminder that caring for our land, water, and communities is a responsibility that we all share. We've seen many students, clubs out, such as the Lions Club, that have adopted roads, cleaning certainly our roadways. And I just want everyone to encourage to take that one small step. And so to recognize that it is a dual responsibility, and thank those that are taking this seriously and doing their part. So thank you. And that is it for announcements. We'll now move into a closed session under the authority of the Municipal Act under Section 239 2B. And I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Watson and second by Councillor Burt. All in favor?